Welcome to For the Common Good with Juanita, a show where we inform, inspire, and empower our businesses, communities, and people just like you. I'm really excited about the show today because today we're talking about epilepsy and the facts about this neurological condition. So whatever you've heard, today we're really giving you the facts, and I have the perfect guest with us today, Mr. Lowell Evans, and I'll tell you a little bit about him. He was born and he's a native of Gloucester, Virginia. It's a small town in Virginia. He's the youngest of 9 children. He later moved to Norfolk and attended the Virginia Wesleyan University. However, after a fall while playing basketball in college, he developed epilepsy. And in the earlier years of his disease, he was able to continue working and worked at the Bank of America for over 10 years. And then later, as his condition became worse, he wasn't able to work. But since that time, he's authored the book. He's the author of the book, The Village, and now he's regional director of the Epilepsy Foundation of Hampton Roads, Virginia. So please help me welcome to the show, Mr. Lowell Evans. Welcome to the show.
Oh, happy to be here. Thank you, ma'am.
You are so welcome. I'm really excited about having you on the show to shine your light on the condition epilepsy, which you've had personal experience with.
A lot of personal experience, yes.
Yeah. So tell us about what is epilepsy and how has it affected people in the United States?
Well, epilepsy itself is a disorder in the brain. And with that disorder, it causes a condition where the nerve cells in the brain can fire off at a rapid rate. And it causes like think about an electrical thunderstorm in the brain.
Wow.
And with that, it can cause a person to seize, and they can move in different ways, and it just can go all over the body, or either in a certain location in the brain, and not until that storm is over will the body stop, or they can lose consciousness, or they also can stay conscious. Mm-hmm. But when that seizure stops, that's when the person can come back to their consciousness, or when they can just come back to normal.
Right.
Yes.
So is it something you can feel, a person can feel coming on, the seizure, or sometimes you may not have any indication that it's coming on?
Well, actually, it can happen both ways.
Okay.
Some people are fortunate to have what you call an aura, and that either can be a feeling, a smell, or some type of indication where they feel a change in their body, or something that they know isn't quite right.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I myself, I'm fortunate. I have epilepsy as well, and so I can feel a seizure coming on, and that's an aura, of course. And sometimes the aura can turn into a seizure, and sometimes it doesn't.
Oh. Okay.
And with that being said, the aura, it can give you like a warning signal. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if it turns into a seizure, which there are many types of seizures, it might pass through into a seizure, and then there's sometimes where the aura stops, and you're able to just get your normal activity back together, and you're fine.
Okay. Wow, I see. Can you give us some type of numbers about how many people are affected by epilepsy in the United States? Because I think people really don't know how prevalent it is in the United States.
Well, this number would surprise many people, but it's close to 3.5 million people with epilepsy in the United States. And I always say those are just the reported cases, because not everyone wants to say they have epilepsy. So think about 3.5 million people in the U.S. with epilepsy, and that's an amazing number. In my state of Virginia, there's close to 85,000 people with epilepsy.
Oh, wow. I
Yes.
had no idea. No idea. So can a person still lead a productive life? I mean, you're fairly, moving around, you're doing your work and, involved with the foundation. So talk about what life is like, with a person living with epilepsy.
Well, Ms. Farrell's actually a person with epilepsy. It can vary.
Okay.
Like for me, having epilepsy now for over 40 years, I've been blessed myself because my seizures aren't that serious. I've been able to take medication where they've been under control. It took me a while now because I had to find the right medication, then the right combinations of medication to help myself. That fall I had back in 1980, I went a long time without another seizure, and therefore mine wasn't that serious that I thought anyway. But later on, it did get more serious. But the main thing was that it's where the seizure takes place, how much damage is done to the brain, and some people are able to work, do have a very productive life. Some people are able to drive, and then the type of seizure they have. Some people have seizures just at night, so they can drive during the daytime. Some people have seizures that they can catch before it comes on, and they're again are able to drive.
So let me ask you this. I know, and I read in the introduction that your epilepsy was caused by a fall that you had while playing college basketball.
Correct.
Was
yes.
it something that was immediately, or was it over a period of time that you began to have these symptoms of epilepsy? How did they know, they determine that, diagnose that?
Well, actually, when it first happened, with the fall, I didn't feel that I had really hurt myself that bad.
Right.
I got right back off the floor, and I was just a little dizzy, but I continued to play. And it was 3 months later, yes, 3 months later, when I was in my dorm room, and I woke up 3 o'clock in the morning with EMTs over my bed, and they told me that I'd been shaking as my roommate informed them, and they thought they had the epilepsy was involved into which was caused by shaking, and that's when they took me to the hospital, and they diagnosed me with having epilepsy.
I see. Wow. Well, so do people understand? I mean, what do they see this as? People see this as a mental condition or a physical condition? How do people see this generally, people that you meet?
Well, epilepsy is an invisible condition, but when you think about it, and people see the way a seizure takes place, they think about the brain, because my brain took some damage when I had my fall.
Yeah.
So when you think about the brain, you think about mental, but actually epilepsy is a physical disorder in the brain. But again, without the education about epilepsy, people first think mental. Because when you see somebody shaking, and it's not always convulsions that happen in a seizure. Some people can be like this, and they're staring, and they're still having that's the type of seizure.
Oh, wow.
But first thing when you mention seizure, people think about convulsions,
Yes.
and somebody shaking
Right.
and be tight like that,
Right.
and they think about the mental part, but actually it's a physical disorder in the brain.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Wow. Well, I am so happy today that we're shedding light on epilepsy. So we're going to talk more about, the stigma associated with it when we come back from break. So we're going to take a short break now. You've been listening to For the Common Good with Juanita Farrow, and I've been talking to our guest, Mr. Lowell Evans, and we'll come right back. Don't you go anywhere. Welcome back to For the Common Good with Juanita. And today we're shining a light on epilepsy. And we have our guest here, Mr. Lowell Evans, who's talking to us and helping to educate our viewers and the community about epilepsy. And I want to talk, Mr. Evans, about the stigma. There's so much stigma associated with this disease. People don't want to talk about it. Can you talk about that experience?
Yes, because I witnessed that myself, the stigma about it, because when I first developed epilepsy and was diagnosed with it, I was told, don't tell anybody you have epilepsy.
So the medical community told you that? The
Even
providers?
even the medical community told me, and I couldn't understand why.
Wow.
And they said, just believe me. And then even some of my friends and relatives told me, look, don't let anybody know. Just take my word for it. And coming from a small town, to be honest with you, I'd never even heard of the term epilepsy. I heard of fits and spells, things of that nature. And I just say, well, they don't know what they're talking about. You know, I'm feeling good. I'm walking around, and the thing about it, I only had one seizure in 1980, and I didn't have any more until maybe like 6 or 7 years later.
Oh, wow.
So I said, well, I'm normal. But I learned the hard way. As soon as I mentioned the word epilepsy to some people, they said, you have epilepsy? I said, yeah, that's what they told me. And they said, oh, okay. I hope you make it. I said, what do you mean make it? They said, well, you got epilepsy. How you gonna make it? I said, well, I'm gonna keep working and do what I have to do. They said, well, you're not gonna find a good job. I said, well, I've already got a job and I'm gonna work my way up the ladder, and hopefully do well. They said, nobody's gonna hire you anymore. Nobody's gonna give you another chance.
Wow.
They said, don't tell anybody. I said, right, yeah. But I soon found out that they were right.
Wow.
It was very difficult when I was telling people I had epilepsy.
So why is that? Why do people feel that way? That as soon as you say that you have epilepsy, then that's going to be the end of the career. What is it that happens to people, employers and other people who, when you tell them that, they automatically assume that you can't work, you can't function, you can't...
Right. Well, Ms. Rose, as I mentioned earlier, it's the mental part that they think about. They think about your brain working. That as soon as they see you shake or have convulsions or that you stare, which is called an absence seizure, they think your brain is not normal. It's damaged to the point where you can't even add 1 and 1 is 2. They think that you can't drive, you can't do a normal job. But again, some of the most successful people in the world had epilepsy. And they don't know that because there's a lack of knowledge of epilepsy in society.
Yes.
And I had to prove that to them by working, at the job and trying to be more successful. And the ones that gave me a chance, I did prove it to them.
Wow.
Yes.
So people still drive with epilepsy, right?
That's correct.
So how is it? Is it difficult to maintain a driver's license and say that you have epilepsy and then be able to maintain a driver's license? I'm just curious, just trying to understand.
Oh, that's a good question. Very good. It differs. It's different in each state that you live in. Sometimes you have to go 6 months, like here in Virginia, seizure free.
Okay.
Some people can even just have seizures at night, and the doctor will say, "Well, you just can't drive at night, and you still have to be six months seizure free, and you can keep your license. Some people can just have certain types of seizures, be on the medication, and have them under control. And then again, there's some states where you have to go a year or so forth and be seizure free, and you can continue to drive. So again, it's up to the doctor, it's up to the state laws that makes a difference.
Yeah. And some states may even be more strict than others
Oh,
in
yes.
terms of that, I bet.
Definitely.
Okay. Wow. So it's very likely that people with epilepsy can feel isolated. Can you talk about what that's like, especially with so much stigma? Nobody wanted to talk about it. Nobody wanting you to talk about it. What is it like?
Let me give you a prime example. I'm the type of person who had a lot of friends. I still have a lot of friends. But I remember one time when I was talking to my friends and even some family members, I'll be honest with you, and they didn't know much about my epilepsy. But I remember looking on Facebook one time, and I hadn't seen my friends in a while, but I was looking at Facebook, and I see a picture of a lot of my friends and a few family members at a cookout in a party. I'm like, I wasn't invited.
Wow.
And it kind of bothered me for a while.
Yeah.
And I said, they just don't understand because they didn't invite me. They didn't invite me to the party, to the cookout.
We're going to take a short break now, but when we come back, we're going to hear more about the work you're doing with the foundation and what we need to be doing as a society to help educate people. There's so much work to do, to dispel all these myths and even in the medical community, I'm sure, even in the medical community, there's work to do.
That is true, yes.
In terms of educating. So we're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we're going to hear more from Mr. Lowell Evans about epilepsy and the facts about this neurological condition. We'll be right back. Don't you go anywhere. Welcome back to For the Common Good with Juanita. And today we're talking about epilepsy with Mr. Lowell Evans. And I know, Mr. Evans, you have done a lot to educate the community, to educate our society. Can you talk about some of the work that you're doing to help people to understand better exactly what epilepsy is?
Yes, my pleasure. Me myself being a regional director, I go to churches, schools, we hold functions with the Epilepsy Foundation of Virginia, and we openly talk about epilepsy. And with me having the condition myself, I talk about my journey with epilepsy, and I invite other people who are willing to speak about it to come in and talk. We have doctors, people other people in the medical field to come in and talk about it, and they give their advice to people about epilepsy and what's it's all about and why it is not is something people don't want to talk about.
Right.
But they also tell them what they should do about epilepsy, and the main thing is that they need to see a doctor if they even have one episode of epilepsy, because they don't know what it is exactly, because you might have one type of seizure and be okay, and you might have a more serious type of seizure, and nobody knows better than the doctor. But one thing that really fascinated me was this. The doctor says, we don't know what a seizure is because we don't have them. We have to learn from the person with epilepsy. Right. So I get a chance and a lot of opportunities to speak myself. And with the Epilepsy Foundation of Virginia, we open the door for individuals to speak. We have families who have children with epilepsy to come in and speak. And they also their family member is a caregiver. So they say what they go through and help that individual to make them feel more comfortable, and also what it does to the family member that has to take care of them. The what it calls for, you know, making sure they take the medication on time, making sure they get their sleep, making sure that they you know, eat the right things, you know, get just everything.
When you say eat the right things, can you elaborate on that? Or do certain foods cause triggers, or what is it about eating? Just eating a balanced meal, just being nutritious? Is that the main thing?
Eating the right foods, eating on time, you know, is one of the main things. Eating on time, eating the right foods, and it's differs for different individuals, because also the type of medication you take, you might have to eat a different type of food.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So that makes a big difference. But the caregiver needs to be there when the patient talks to a doctor, because with me personally, I was stubborn. When I was first diagnosed, I was single. I said, well, they don't know, because no, I'm a man. I can handle it. You know, I was working on my own, but again, I was wrong. They need to know, an individual epilepsy needs to know the facts about epilepsy. And there's always more research going on all the time, through surgery, through implants that's being used now to help individuals make it through with epilepsy. And that's why so many people with epilepsy now are able to work. So much more research is happening now that a person can go about a normal day, a normal lifestyle with epilepsy present. And I've seen it a number of times through big functions where people talk about epilepsy, and then you wonder how are they able to do it. But everything's possible, or anything can be possible.
Right. So I'm just kind of wondering, help us walk through, how someone just being diagnosed with epilepsy and, maybe a young child, there's only but so much the medical community is going to do, because they don't have the experience themselves, right? So, the network of the foundation and other organizations, what support for that person? I mean, what are you telling that person? What advice are you giving that mother who may, just have a child diagnosed with epilepsy? What kind of advice would you give her?
Well, the number one thing I would advise the parent to do is to get into a support group.
Yes.
Get into a support group and find somebody who's already has epilepsy, had the experience.
Good.
Have that individual find somebody who they can talk to, and openly talk to, that's already been down that road, and they can find somebody they feel relaxed. Because epilepsy can be embarrassing to people, because again, without the knowledge of epilepsy being a disorder in the brain instead of a mental condition, that's why they don't want to talk about it. You feel labeled, and you feel left out. But if you find a support group, you find a doctor, a neurologist, in other words, for epilepsy. There's also a specialist called an epileptologist that a lot of people are not aware of, that specializes in epilepsy.
So generally you would go see a neurologist, right? Is that who you would see for?
Correct.
A neurologist? But then this is a specialty.
Exactly. Epileptologist is a neurologist who specializes in epilepsy. And a lot of people are not aware of that type of doctor. I myself wasn't aware of it for a number of years. And with the epileptologist, they'll step in and they will focus right on epilepsy totally. And a lot of times that's the changing point,
right,
with somebody dealing with epilepsy. And it's a key. It's a major factor in and making those decisions on what to do, surgery, implants, to change. There's diets you can do to help a person with epilepsy, live a better life, live a more happier life with epilepsy.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's so much to learn and so much information out there. And it's come such a long ways, I guess, with the amount of research that's being done. But probably we still need to do more research.
There's research going on all the time, Ms. Farrells. And that's a good thing about it.
Yeah.
We have functions with the Epilepsy Foundation. We also assist them with financially with medication. And we have the functions where they can come in themselves and ask questions. We're having one that's coming in March where they can come and they can ask questions. We'll have speakers. We'll have a person or two people that are patients that's going to come in and talk and just openly share what they're going through so people can relate to one another.
Wow. Wow, this has been so informative. So thank you so much, Mr. Evans, for coming and sharing your own personal story with epilepsy. And thank you for being on the show today. If someone wanted to contact you, follow up with you, is there an email or website or information you'd want to share with the viewers?
Yes, it is. My email is efva.evans@gmail.com. Also, we have hopefully coming out this year, a movie. A gentleman's making a movie. It's called Under the Lights by Mr. Miles Levine, who's out in California.
Wow.
And that's going to be a movie a family type movie where anybody can relate to.
Yeah.
He's working on that right now. And I've met Miles. He's a wonderful person who also has epilepsy.
Oh, didn't know
So he's really dedicated to getting the information out there. So I think that's going to be a very key factor in communicating with people about epilepsy.
Yeah.
So it's going to be good.
Great.
And also my phone number for the area in Virginia is 757-904-3209.
Thank you so much again for sharing your story and being on For the Common Good. Really appreciate this.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank you so much. And thank you for tuning in to For the Common Good with Juanita. We'll see you next time.